Hi, I'm Saralee Sloven, and I'm sitting in the living room of Orit Guttmacher Levy, who is the producer, who is the commander-in-chief of this project. And I'm very happy that she's giving me the opportunity to share what I know of our father's life, Benjamin Greenberg. Ben was born in the year 1895, and he was born in Springfield, Massachusetts. His parents were Labe Greenberg, who Lionel, my older brother, was named after, and Esther. I don't remember Esther's maiden name, but they came from Russia. They were immigrants. I imagine they came through Ellis Island, although I don't know. But they had some family connections in Springfield, Massachusetts, and that was where the older brother, Charlie, and 2 years older than our dad, Ben, were born. For some reason, the family moved to Chicago. I don't know why they moved. And at this time, there was Charlie, Ben, and a little girl whose name was Lillian. My grandmother, Esther Greenberg, was widowed when her husband was killed. He was killed as he tried to stop a runaway horse. She was left with Charlie, the older brother, 2 years older than Ben, and the baby Lillian. Esther had no way to make a living. She couldn't even speak English properly when I knew her. And a rabbi called on her and said, "Mrs. Greenberg, there's no way that you can keep your little family together. And I think, and I'm encouraging you, that we place Charlie and Ben in a Jewish orphanage in Cleveland, Ohio." And Esther, of course, was reluctant to part with the boys, but she knew he was right. So the boys were shipped off to this orphanage in Cleveland. In later years, I asked my dad, "What do you remember of this orphanage? What was the treatment there?" And he said, of course, he was very young. His memory was not very clear, but he remembers it as a place where he was treated okay. And this is the place that he got the Hebrew education, the little Hebrew education that he was able to achieve. In the intervening 2 years, Esther struggled as best she could, and a Jewish organization stepped in and said, "You need a husband. We know a man who was widowed with 4 children, and we suggest the 2 of you get married." And the way to earn a living after the marriage was to go out and claim homestead land, which was available in North Dakota. So the story is that Chaim Brody, with his 4 children, it was 3 boys and 1 little girl. I only know the name of 1 child, Nellie, the little girl, and Esther Greenberg, were married in the morning, and on the train in the afternoon with his 4 children, her 1 daughter, and the baby. The baby was Jenny. On the train going out to Bismarck, North Dakota, to stake a claim for homestead land, because every Jew had this wonderful dream of owning land and being their own boss as a farmer on land, because in Russia and Poland and throughout many parts of Europe, the Jews were the 2nd or 3rd class citizens and were unable to own land. After this family was somewhat established, Chaim was a carpenter, so he was able to build a home on this land. The family sent for the 2 boys. By this time, the older one, Charlie, was 9. Our dad was 7. Our dad remembers being on the train with a tag on his jacket saying, "My name is Benjamin Greenberg. I'm going to Bismarck, North Dakota, where I will meet a Chaim Brody." He vaguely remembers the train stopping and meeting Chaim Brody, and Chaim Brody was there at the depot in Bismarck waiting for him with a wagon bed filled with straw, with the skis on in place of wheels, and being pulled by a team of horses. And of course, you can picture the horses with the frosted breath and the wind and the snow and the cold. And Chaim said to the boys, "Bury yourself in the straw and you'll be able to stay warmer because we have a long way to go out to the homestead." This homestead was located between Regan and Wing. And of course, now the family was 4 Brody children and 4 Greenberg children. Life on the homestead was very, very difficult. There was a cluster of Jewish homesteaders in the vicinity. And the story is they would get together for Jewish holidays and they would attempt to help each other. But none of these people knew anything about farming, and life was difficult for them. The climate was against them, the soil was against them, they got very poor soil, it was covered with rocks, and they had to clear the land first. And our dad said he could never forget these piles of rocks in these fields that the family had collected so seeds could be planted. Life was difficult for the Greenberg Brody family. My dad could never look a bowl of oatmeal in the face, nor could he eat a dish of cottage cheese, because these were 2 foods that Esther was able to create for the family. There was a country school. I don't know how far it was, but the children attended as they were free to attend. They wouldn't begin in the fall and end in the spring because the farm work always came first. Dad apparently was a very, very good student. When he completed or semi-completed his schooling in this country school, there was some traveling administrator who said, "Ben has great potential and his education shouldn't end here. He should be able to continue." And he gave Ben a set of tests, and Ben passed these tests very successfully that showed that he had completed 8th grade and was now eligible to attend an accredited high school. I hope that I have given you a picture of how difficult life was on the farm. Lily, one of the daughters, said she never got a winter jacket of her own until she was 16, and it was a special holiday when she could pick her jacket from the Sears catalog, because she had been wearing a hand-me-down jacket from her older brother, Charlie. So you can imagine what little warmth this jacket had. But, and Chaim believed that the children should be kept busy every day, every minute of the day. So when the farm chores were done, then he would find other chores for them to do. But getting back to Ben's education, there was a traveling Chautauqua rabbi by the name of Rabbi Hess, and he lived in Ashley, North Dakota. One of his daughters was Helen Hess, and Helen Hess became an auntie to me because she married my mother's older brother, Nate Arba. He was the second brother of my mother. My mother was She said her Hebrew name was Penina, which is pearl, but she was always called Penina. So in her family, I'm digressing just a drop, there was a brother, Nate. He was the middle brother. Abe was the older brother. And that family also had homesteaded. But that's a whole different chapter. I'm just relating the chapter that relates to the Greenberg-Brody branch of the family. Well, I'm back to Rabbi Hess now. And when he saw Ben, and he heard that Ben has a potential for education, he thought that Ben would be a great addition to help the family in Ashley. He could take care of the horses, he could do the yard work, he could change the storm windows to screen windows, whatever handiwork was necessary. Ben could come, live with the Hesses, and go to high school, and that way earn a high school degree. And the Ashley High School had just recently been accredited. So the family had their huddle and decided, yes, this was an opportunity for Ben. So Ben, with his few possessions, moved into the rabbi's house. But it didn't take long that a relationship developed between Ben and Paulina Arbach. And this was very detrimental to Ben's remaining in the Hess household, because Rabbi Hess had a son that was Paulina's age, Melvin, and his dream was that Melvin and Paulina would fall in love and get married. And when Ben entered the scene, it became very apparent very soon that Paulina would never become interested in Melvin. So the rabbi decided Ben should get out of the picture, and he told Ben, I'm sorry, you'll have to leave, you'll have to go back to the farm. So Ben didn't want to do this, and he scouted around this town of Ashley, which was a very small town, and he found the hotel owner. It was rather a rundown hotel. It was owned and managed by a lady up in years, and he approached the lady and said, could you give me board, and in exchange I'll do repairs about the hotel and the yard. And with that place to room, he was able to do a few odd jobs, and he was able to continue his education in Ashley. And this took 3 years. And in the meantime, he wasn't able to spend all his time in Ashley because the homestead and the family needed him. So oftentimes he would leave in the spring for the spring farm work and leave school in the fall also for farm work. But as I remember, he graduated with honors, and of course, everybody was very proud of him. And the next question on the horizon was, how could Ben go to university? He had the potential to continue with his education. Calamity struck the family. The older brother, Charlie, who was 21 at this time, had settled in Fargo, North Dakota. He had a job. He worked in a fruit and vegetable warehouse. He had a beautiful voice, as Lily had, and he was taking voice lessons. And he had fallen in love with a Jewish woman, and they were engaged. Well, one very nice summer day, Charlie, the engaged woman, and a friend decided to go canoeing on the Red River. Now, the Red River has a reputation of being rather dangerous. And they were canoeing on this bright, sunny day. There were picnickers on the shore, enjoying the nice day. And on the river advances a steamboat with a wake. Some way this wake upset the canoe the 3 occupants were in. and the friend and the girlfriend quickly bobbed to the surface. But Charlie, they think, they never knew, hit his head on a rock on the bottom of the river and never rose to the surface and drowned. Well, this was a terrible, terrible shanda to lose this handsome, talented son. What happened next was, before the death, a life insurance salesman had called on the Brody Greenberg family. Well, there was a brand new life insurance company getting established in Bismarck, North Dakota, called the Provident Life Insurance Company. A salesman had been canvassing the farmers, and for some unknown reason, the family bought $1,000 life insurance on Charlie. With Charlie's death, the family now had $1,000, which was a great windfall. Every Jewish homesteader family had been attempting to leave their homestead. They realized they could never make a decent living, and they wanted to move, to get off this land, but they had no means to do it. So if they scraped together a little money some way, some of them were fortunate, and they moved to where family was. Some moved to the Twin Cities, others moved out into the new community of Los Angeles, and others were able to open little general stores in these small towns in central North Dakota. In those days, you didn't need a lot of capital to open a store. I guess you could open a store on $500 credit. This insurance money became a vehicle that the family bought a little general store in a town called Heaton, North Dakota. At this point, Lily was living in Chicago. She had found a job there in a shoe store, and she was taking voice lessons. The family knew nothing about merchandising, so they called Lily home to help them. And I often think Lily's life would have been completely different had she had taken the opportunity to remain in Chicago. The other $5,000 was used for Ben's education, and he enrolled at the University of North Dakota to earn a law degree. I asked him at one time how come he decided to be a lawyer. And he said when he was a boy and his stepfather and mother had to go to the bank to renew a loan or to try to borrow more money, of course they couldn't understand the banker. And Ben was brought along with them to be the translator. So from those humble beginnings, he decided he should be a lawyer. He graduated law in 3 years. He graduated in 1919. And I was fortunate to see a yearbook of the U of North Dakota, and there were several pictures of Ben Greenberg. And in these pictures, he was kind of goofing around, as young men have the ability to do. And it was just really a shock to me to see our father in this jovial, playful activities that he was engaged with. And I knew one of the other students, a Shalom somebody, that he was having a good time with. Well, getting back to 1919, the parents were married, Dad's last year of law school. They had some kind of an apartment in Grand Forks, and I read a clipping about their marriage. And Mother's dress was just a beautiful, beautiful white dress. It was decorated with pearls. They were married in the home of Nate and Helen Hess. And this article, of course, was very flowery, and but I noticed in this article that none of Dad's family attended this wedding. And I have no idea. Maybe it was too far. Maybe it was a busy season for them. I have no idea the reason why. Well, they were married in 1919. And after they graduated, Dad had an opportunity to move to Grafton, North Dakota. Now, Grafton, North Dakota was 40 miles north of Grand Forks, where the U of North Dakota was. And Mother remembered this move as going from house to house, trying to find rooms or some type of living conditions. It was a town of 4,000. There were no Jews living there. But there was some opportunity for Dad, that there was some judge that knew Dad, respected Dad, and this judge needed somebody to help with his practice in Grafton. I'm very vague on this, but they moved to Grafton. After Dad's association with this judge, he joined another law firm, which I can't remember the name. He joined another law firm of Depew and Depew. This was an older man and his married son. And I don't know what year it was, Dad decided he should have practice alone. And I remember the move. He moved to a 2-room, exaggerate and call it a suite. It was 2 good-sized rooms, one for the stenographer, and which was the waiting room, and one was his office. And his office was lined with bookcases filled with law books. And in each room there was a closet for supplies. Dad was very, very respected in Grafton. His clients were big farmers who trusted him, who relied on him. Dad would not take a divorce case. He said he didn't believe in divorce if a man would come to him, as Willard Hendrickson did. My dad gave him the advice, go home, Willard, decide to get along with your wife. I will not help you get a divorce. But Dad, as I say, he enjoyed his practice. He enjoyed living in Grafton. It was easy for him to fit into that lifestyle. He had been drafted for World War I, and he was a member of the American Legion. The American Legion was one of the leading organizations in the city or town. He did a lot of law work for them, and he always did it gratis. He was also a member of the Masons, and he went up through the ranks, and he became whatever the head of the Masons was. And he enjoyed living in Grafton. Mother wasn't so content, but she belongs in another story. Another calamity hit the family when my dad turned 50. He had his first heart attack. There were several contributing factors to his heart attack. One was, when they were on the homestead, he and Lily, for sure, suffered scarlet fever, which is strep throat, which can lead to heart defects. And the thinking was, because of his scarlet fever, he had this severe heart attack. We had a couple doctors in Grafton, but this couldn't even be confirmed until he was well enough to make a 40-mile trip into Grand Forks, where he had an electrocardiogram, where it was determined, yes, it was a heart attack. The doctor counseled him that the climate in North Dakota was too severe for him. His law office was on the 2nd floor over the weekly newspaper office, and the doctor said climbing those steps would just be too taxing for him. And as he recovered a little bit, he began doing his law work on the dining room table, and his office girl would keep the office open at certain hours, and at certain hours she would come to the home and take dictation, go back, type it up the next day, so Dad could do a little more law work. It wasn't to his choosing, but he did the best he could. At the same period in the family's history, my mother began having, I'll use the word, fits. And the doctoring in Grafton was not very advanced, and first it was thought that she was suffering from nervous breakdown. I forgot to interject into this story that during this war period, Lionel, who was 4 years older than I, his plane had been shot down over Europe, he had been captured, and there was a period where the family didn't know whether he was dead or alive, and later learned that he was a prisoner in an officer's prisoner of war camp in Germany. Also, one of the patriotic duties that my dad assumed was to be an agent for conscientious objectors in the county, and he would represent these young farmers trying to get out of the draft for World War II. And this also was very stressful for him. So he had many serious stresses, and with my mother's strange behavior, it became very, very difficult for them. And they made the decision at this point, both for 50, which at this time in history is a very young age, they would leave Grafton, and they also would move out to Los Angeles, where they had family. This is where Dad's family had settled. His two sisters had established themselves there. And one of the sisters' husband, Morris Waxman, it was Jenny and Morris Waxman, had purchased an extra home because, another long story, for a worker that was going to move with them, they moved from a very small town, Bowdoin, North Dakota, out to LA, and I was instrumental in that move, and that's another long story. But they were out there, they were settled, they had this extra home, it was small, but Mother and Dad and Charles moved out there. Charles, I believe, was about 12. And they took their dog, Terry, and had a new chapter in their life. Now, director, who is Orit Gutmacher, should I end?
Whatever you feel like, Safta.
Well, I'll continue for a little while, and maybe Charles, who's 9 years younger, knows more about this part of the story than I do. But at this time, when the family moved, and I helped them move, Dad was in no condition, Mother was in no condition. She needed a strong right arm, and I became that strong right arm. Got them packed up, and the three of them moved out to LA. The plan was that I would return to the U, Minnesota, and complete my senior year of college. I was in the College of Education, and join them out in Los Angeles. When they got out to Los Angeles, it was in the fall. I should figure out what year it was. I think it was the end of 1945, and the family was very much in distress. Mother was undergoing doctoring for her health, and luckily she got a very good doctor, and he determined that she had a brain tumor. At that time, surgery for a brain tumor was not advised. The doctor would observe the patient until he felt the patient could no longer live, and then brain surgery would be attempted. My dad's condition did not improve. His aim was to try to pass the California bar and develop a law practice in the state of California. As I remember him studying. He wasn't successful. The family was rapidly going downhill. I was at the U of North Dakota. It was coming to the end of the year, 1945. And my auntie, Auntie Jenny Waxman, sent me a letter, and she said, Saralee, your family has been living with us. It's not the best arrangement. She was not well. She had a very severe heart condition due to her strep illness when she was young. She had born one child, Charlie, and they couldn't have any more. And she suggested that I end school and come out, try to get the family more on their feet, and then return to the U of Minnesota and complete my education. So I flew out there the end of that year, and I keep saying this, and it's true. The family was in distress. Mother wasn't functioning well. Dad was depressed, and at that time, I don't remember depressed people getting any antidepressants. I don't remember this depression being treated. But he got involved with a very so-called advanced doctor who was studying heart attacks. And I remember one of the treatments was to take, I think, 3 tablespoons of ground up, dry cow aorta 3 times a day. And he was placed on a very, very limited diet. At that time, there were no low cholesterol products. Anything that had cholesterol in it, butter, sour cream, cheeses, meats that had a little fat in them, were restricted. His diet became very, very limited. Mother was not, I keep saying this, but it's true. And also they joined a synagogue. The synagogue really wasn't to their liking. Mother felt the rabbi discriminated against them because they were not heavy givers to the synagogue. But Charles was enrolled, and Charles had a bar mitzvah. At this point, we had a large number of family living in the LA area. I remember the bar mitzvah very well. I remember mother serving a very simple lunch to there were almost 45 relatives with a cousin. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Anyway, it turned out to be one of their joyous occasions. And instead of my returning to the University of Minnesota, that just became an impossibility. It just wasn't in the stars at all. And I don't know what else I can say about our parents. I'm thinking now, I don't think Dad ever made any kind of an adjustment. I never heard him complain. I remember him resting a great deal on the Davenport. I remember my mother getting more involved with life in LA, and Charles and Anna would know more about that part of the story. Dad died at age 70. The doctors advised him to have his gallbladder removed, and the family went ahead with this surgery. I went out there. I went out there previously to help celebrate their 45th wedding anniversary. I had Marcia and Ruthie and David at that time. Jeff was a baby, remained home with his dad and a hired girl. I tried to remain in close touch with the parents. The parents came and visited us many times and stayed very long in our home in Bismarck. But I remember being out there for Dad's surgery. He didn't survive. I remember visiting him in the hospital. I remember him wanting to ask me if I could manage to take responsibility for Mother. He knew he wouldn't survive. He didn't ask me outright. I could see that he was thinking about it, that this had been a very heavy thought on his head. But he didn't bring it out in words, and I didn't volunteer. At this time, for sure, I had 4 children. I maybe had Daniel. No, I didn't have Daniel yet. I wasn't pregnant. And I didn't volunteer to assume this responsibility. And he died. After he died, I don't know if I got the idea or some member, I don't know if Sid got the idea, but I called and I said, instead of burying Dad in the LA area, consider burying him in this little Jewish cemetery in Bismarck. I'm going to start to cry pretty soon. That his association with North Dakota was stronger than any association he ever had. And it wouldn't be difficult to have a funeral here, a funeral in Bismarck, that Saul Wesselman, our brother-in-law, would officiate, and Dad knew Saul Wesselman, respected Saul Wesselman. I remember standing at the depot with Mother as the casket arrived by train. I don't remember any open casket visitation. And in the funeral parlor, the casket was closed. There was only one small bouquet of flowers there. And my sister-in-law, Charlotte Cammons, was very disturbed by this. And she phoned her son, Maury, who is my nephew, and who was, at this point, I think, was becoming the owner of the Western, and said, Ben should have more flowers, and Maury ordered another bouquet of flowers, so there were 2 bouquets of flowers. I don't remember the officiation of the ceremony. I don't remember the burial too much. I can't tell you even the date. I imagine I had a dinner. There was a Jewish community in Bismarck at that time, and they would help produce a meal after this burial. I don't remember this meal, but I imagine it happened, and a year later, Mother was in Bismarck. She asked me to come and help her pick out the tombstone. I felt I was just there for moral support, and we went, and she picked out a very nice brown granite tombstone. Of course, when we lived in Bismarck, Sid and I visited the cemetery on Memorial Day and maybe other occasions. And when I go back to the Bismarck, of course, Mother and Dad are there, and Sid's parents are there, and Sid is there. It's turned out to be a family plot. Norman Cammons is there. Charlotte will be there. I'll be resting there. And that's all I have to share at this time. And Orit will add a few words at some point and add more to this video. And I thank Orit for this opportunity. It's been on my mind. I couldn't do it myself, although at one time I started. So I'm glad you've given me the opportunity to share, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Savta.
Well, thank you, Orit. It was very nice. It's very nice to remember.